Well, Chris, I don't know if it would be a podcast night if we didn't start a little bit late, but here we are, as always, bells on, ready to rock, organized, mission, focused, right? I mean, we're ready now.
If there's one thing you can count on with our podcast, we're going to be a little bit late when we start. I mean, it's how it's always been. It's unfortunate, but you got a couple of dads here. We're busy. I just came from, my son had soccer from 5 to 6, and so I had to get him around, and that's a fun thing to be outside and watch that. But yeah, man, it's there's a lot going on these days.
I'll blame the technology again, like last time or one of the last times we were on. You had microphone stuff. I go to start the pod up, and YouTube just won't connect. I just keep getting an error message. I'm like, what the hell is?
I think we need younger people who are who know technology a little bit better. Like I have this beautiful podcasting set over here that I can't even use. I'm using like a $20 gamer headset from Walmart, which works just fine. Doesn't look as classy, but we need some help. But there's only so much that the two of us can do. Brandon.
You're getting back to the roots, man. When we started, this is all we needed, bro. Was a headset with a little puff ball on the end of it. That's it. We didn't need all that fancy shit, dude. We got it done.
I felt like I classed it up a little bit, and then it just crashed and burned. So
here we are. We are approaching episode 200, dude. I think we're at about like 180s, mid 180s, 190, somewhere in there. So we will we'll keep marching on till we hit that 200 mark, and that'll be geez, man, when will that be? If it's another 7 weeks, I don't know. We'll see. We're somewhere in the 190 range. I'll have to look at it tonight, but we will hit 200, I think, before the season starts. So we'll talk about that as it gets a little closer. All right. So transfer portal really has been like the biggest news over the last week, mostly exiting at this point. But as we know, Michigan basketball and football have both done pretty well bringing guys in. But over the past week, it was guys leaving. So we'll start with basketball. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it. It's one guy. Yeah, exactly. Impact-wise, I don't know if we'll even feel it. But it's a little bit of another, like, God, what the hell's going on with the basketball program still? Like, that's kind of what it feels like. But Greg Glenn, he was only at Michigan for one season his freshman year. He played in, like, 4 games, scored 6 points, I mean, like, the production is not going to be missed at all, but it's a young body. It's a guy who's now on his way out. I think there was some rumblings that he was a little homesick even during the school year, during the season. So it's not like a shocker. And again, on the court, you're not really going to feel it at all right now, but you never know what he's going to turn into. And Michigan's roster isn't exactly stout at this moment. So I don't know. When I saw it, I was like, all right. Yeah, I don't know if I snored. It was close. I might have dozed real quick, wake back up for a second, but not the biggest deal in the world. But again, just kind of any news that comes out of basketball lately doesn't seem to be awesome. I guess that's kind of where I would put it.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because you got two different things going on right now. You have a basketball program that obviously didn't have a great season last year. Not really much happening with the roster. I know that Juwan Howard's brought in some from the transfer portal. I think people are expecting, far more to happen in the transfer portal in order to supplement this roster. But losing Greg Glenn, like, you're right, it's a guy that didn't have too much of an impact. He was there for a year, and so didn't really move the needle much for the fan base. I think people right now are so excited about what's happening with the football program in terms of, recruiting and what the prospects are for 2023 that – basketball just isn't going to move the needle right now. It's a program that needs some work. And I think that the loss of Greg Glenn, you want to retain as many guys as you can and keep your recruits around and develop them. But I mean, if there's anything that we've learned, especially as of late, especially for those who are paying attention to what's going on in Boulder right now with Colorado, the transfer portal is, it's a huge part of college athletics. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon.
No, absolutely not. And yeah, we'll touch on what's going on with Primetime and Deion and the Buffs out there. But I mean, dude, it's been like 50. It's been over 50 guys since Deion Sanders took over, which is a massive number. It was 19.
I read that they are going to have
spring game.
Right. It's I think it's above that now, but they're tracking towards having 74 new scholarship players next year, which is essentially the equivalent of 3 recruiting cycles. And so you're talking about an entirely new team that he's going to put out on the field. And it's going to be really interesting because there's been so much attention on what's happening there. Is it going to work? Is it going to lead to success? Is it going to be a complete disaster? If there's one thing Deion Sanders has done, kind of what Jim Harbaugh did when he took over at Michigan. I mean, Michigan's never really fallen off the map, but it was all eyes on Michigan. What's Jim Harbaugh doing on the recruiting trail? Deion Sanders is kind of having that same impact out in Boulder, and it's going to be really interesting because there are going to be a ton of people watching to see what that program does this upcoming season. And if you lose that many guys and you go out and you have another 1-11 season, or you win 3 games or 4 games, there's going to be a lot of people questioning, whether or not it was a good thing to lose, 50 plus players to the portal.
Yeah, Chris, I know you and I are both on social quite a bit. I don't know if everybody else in here is, but I think you probably saw it. The spring game attendance last year versus this year. Last year for Colorado, it looked like there were a few people working in the stands to clean garbage out.
Concessions,
Yeah, just concession workers, maybe local vagrants from the Boulder area just sleeping in there. It was embarrassing. And this year, not even the whole stadium was full, not a seat open in the house. So he's having an impact. Like you said, all eyes on him, all eyes on that program. They've injected some talent, but yeah, that's an incredible amount of turnover, something like we've never seen before. And also not really a surprise. He said that in his first day in there, he just was like, get your shit and go if you don't want to be here. I mean, he did not pull any punches. He was not shy about it.
Here's the one thing though, that gives me some pause is that he's also losing some of the top players that are there. I know that they had one of their best receivers decided to enter the portal. And then just within the last 20 minutes or so, I saw that Taylor Upshaw, after 4 months out in Colorado, is back in the portal. And so, that's a guy who didn't even play a game, obviously, at Colorado last year, wasn't a part of that 1-11 team, but for some reason, and I'm sure more will come out, in the coming days and weeks, but for some reason, just it wasn't catching on out of Colorado. And so that one's a little bit strange to me. And that's where I go back to, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I know he's brought some guys in from the transfer portal, one from Old Dominion, one from Florida State I've seen. So he's got some guys that are coming in, but he's got way more that are going out. And so it's going to be, again, interesting to see what this program looks like come fall.
Yeah, obviously his son, the quarterback, Shadur, I'm probably not saying his name right, I'm not positive, but Travis Hunter, the #1 recruit in the country from the year before that, cornerback, and then Cormani McLean, another 5. I mean, he's bringing talent. He's got some sizzle. He's Neon Deion. He's got a name. He's got a way about him. We'll see if there's any stake. And that's what it's really going to be about, because that's a bad team from last year. And some of the best players that were on that team that only mustered 1 win have decided to leave. So we'll see. We'll see what that looks like. And look, here we are doing a Michigan podcast talking about Colorado and Deion. And that's what he's doing out there. So it is working in some sense of the word. And now we'll see what it looks like on the field. And I'm curious. I'm curious to see how he does and what it looks like. Obviously, he had success at Jackson State, but it's a different animal, in the big the Power 5, Pac-12, and taking over a really bad team. So the jury is still out on that one for sure. As for Michigan, transfer portal also humming along, but it feels a little different. Michigan brought in what I think could be 4 or 5 guys who are going to play major snaps for the Wolverines this year. 3 maybe along the offensive line. AJ, why is his last name escaping? Barner. AJ Barner, the big tight end who looked really good in the spring game. And, Josiah Stewart looked like he's going to contribute. There's literally 4 or 5 dudes.
Ernest Hausman is probably
there's a lock. Yeah,
pretty much a starter at this point, I would say.
So Michigan doing the transfer portal in a way that has really, really supplemented their roster. We saw it last year as well with Oluwatimi winning the Remington and helping that offensive line win the Joe Moore Award again. But you don't get some guys coming in without a few guys leaving as well. And 3 dudes left Michigan's program this week that, while they might not be pictured as starters, they've played a lot of football and they're really good for the locker room, for leadership, for the depth of their respective positions. Chris, I know you and I were texting a little bit and you're like, that depth, I don't know, that depth a little bit now. You feel it a little bit. But wide receiver AJ Henning, who I don't know what it is about him. I wrote this when I put the impact story up. I don't know if it's because I got to know him pretty well when he was a recruit, or if he wears number 3, which is my favorite jersey number, my old jersey number, or because he's a speedy guy and he can do a lot of different things. But he hardly ever played. Like, he had 40 touches in 3 years at Michigan, man. That's not a lot. That's not counting his stuff in the return game. Nikhai Hill-Green, who looked like he was trending in a major way as a sophomore, and then he got hurt, didn't play at all last year, and that just kind of happens. That's how football works sometimes. He got passed by. You mentioned Hausman. I mean, the writing's on the wall there for him as he tries to get healthy and back onto the field. And then R.J. Moten, another guy who played a ton of football at Michigan, but also appears to have been passed by younger guys, or in Makari Page's instance, the same age. So, A.J. Henning, Nikhai Hill-Green, R.J. Moten, gone, Chris. They all kind of came out within an hour or two of each other. What were you thinking as we're seeing this and we're putting these stories up? I mean, I kind of gave it away a little bit there, but you said, the depth is taking a hit.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised to learn about A.J. Henning. I think, you and I talked a little bit about this offline, but I just thought that was coming for a while. The same way that I was pretty sure Andrel was going to transfer towards the end of the season. I mean, you look at the way the Michigan offense operates, and, those guys didn't play perfect at the University of Michigan, but are talented enough to where they can go somewhere else to another program and at least have the opportunity to make an impact. And when you look at Michigan's offense, if you're a skill player, if you're a wide receiver, I mean, they've already got plenty of guys that can fill roles, they're at that position. And so, if you're a guy like A.J. Henning, it felt like he was just on the outside looking in. He had some big plays during 2022, returned, I think it was 1 or 2 punts for a touchdown, at least one, I remember, against UConn, I think it was, and then had a pretty big game against Ohio State in 2021, scored a touchdown on a jet sweep, but that was pretty much the extent of his involvement in the offense, was a jet sweep, bubble screen, maybe. But Michigan really doesn't, it's not an offense that's built to throw the ball, get the wide receivers involved. You got to be a big body, get out there and block. And so wasn't surprised to see that. R.J. Moten, again, another guy who's got plenty of experience. That one I was a little bit surprised by, but you mentioned Makari Page, who came on towards the end of last season and got a lot of minutes. And Nikhai Hill-Green, missed all of last year with the injury. He's already found a new home. He's out in Charlotte, so he joins Yabi Oki, and I think there was another Michigan transfer that went out to Charlotte as well. Who was that? That was
Biff Poggi's coaching out there.
Welshoff, though, right? Defensive line.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
So he's out there as well. So that's 3 former Wolverines now out in Charlotte. I mean, not surprised to see any of those guys in the portal, but in terms of depth, we're relying on a lot of what Michigan has, a lot of the starters to be the guys and to be healthy. And, you hate to see guys that can not only provide depth, but are also big pieces to the locker room. And, covering them over the last 2 years, you get to know these guys a little bit to a certain extent. And it's always kind of a bummer to see them go.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I got to know Henning pretty well when he was in high school. I know you had an NIL event where he was out there hanging out a little bit. So yeah, you do get a chance to know these guys a little bit more than just a helmet and a number. But
how about that? 2 guys I did an NIL deal with in the portal. Maybe it's me.
Maybe it is you. Maybe they're just taking advantage of the bearded bald guy. That's what it is, dude. That's what happened.
You know what? We're just gonna get what we can out of them, and then we're in the portal. Maybe it's all about me, Brandon.
There it is. But no, look, man, if Michigan was getting ready to play a football game last week, I think I would have had A.J. Henning penciled in as my 3rd receiver. I mean, so are you going to miss what he did? No, because he hasn't done a lot. I mean, he had, single-digit catches, I think, for the last 2 seasons. Again, he was reliable as a punt returner. He made some plays there. I think he also had a kick return for a touchdown in 2021. And, a couple long touchdowns on reverses and jet sweeps. And then, that play against Ohio State in the snow, I think it was either to take the lead or make an answer right back, or he just follows Eric All right. That's going to be like the signature play of A.J. Henning's career. But I think you'd be lying to yourself if you said you're really going to miss him. And that's crazy to me because I thought he was such a weapon when he got to Michigan. I thought they'd be able to use him in a million different ways. Dude, if you go back through our dashboard on the website over at Wolverine Digest and type in his name, I wrote probably 2 or 3 stories about him. He should play more, give him the ball more. He's versatile. He can do this. He can do that. And it just never really came to fruition. So having him gone, I don't think you're going to miss it much. Same thing with Nikai Hill-Green. Played a lot as a sophomore, hurt last year, but I mean, you've got Junior Colson, you've got Ernest Hausman, you've got Mike Barrett, and you've got Jimmy Rolder, who played a good bit last year as a true freshman. You're just flat out not going to miss the guy. And the same thing for Moten. And I'm not trying to pile on, but this is what you have to start looking at when you realize these guys are no longer on the roster. Right. Who's going to be there? Who's going to step up behind them? We mentioned Makari Page and Rod Moore. I mean, Rod Moore, I didn't realize this because I looked at the numbers I wanted to see. Makari Page played 60 more snaps than RJ Moten. Rod Moore played 300 more snaps than both of them. They're good. They're good. And then you've got Keon Sabb and you've got Zeke Berry, who haven't really settled into an exact position yet. Even Damani Dent, who is a long, athletic, kind of rangy guy. He's been battling some injuries. But again, guys that played a lot of football, but I just don't know if you'll even notice them gone. And that's that speaks to the depth of the talent on this team.
Correct. And I think because it happened so quickly, each announcement, I could see it on social media, some people asking like, what's going on? What's happening in Ann Arbor, those types of things. And I think, the article that you put out in terms of what impact it has, to say that it's minimal isn't a knock against those guys. They're all talented. Right. They can all go to another Power 5 program, and if not be a starter, play, make a solid contribution wherever they land. It really just speaks to where Michigan currently is as a football program, how many guys they have, the depth of talent that they have. And the only thing you hope, obviously, is that Michigan doesn't run into several injuries at these key positions where you look back at a guy like RJ Moten and you're like, damn it, it would be nice to have him there. But these guys, their experience, their time in college is limited. And they, if they have an opportunity to go elsewhere and make a name for themselves and get on the field, they should do that. And, wish them the best of luck.
So 20 hours ago, AJ Henning tweets, if they throw in, I'm going.
Yeah.
And now he's been crystal balled to Iowa. So good luck with that. Good luck with that.
Well,
yeah. Man. I'm not sure why that would be the choice, but hey, there it is.
That would be a head scratcher to me. Yeah. Listen, if AJ Henning goes to that offense, unless there's something revolutionary happening out in Iowa with that football program,
I mean, that's
you'll be on the field more, but do you really want to be? I mean, is that an offense you want to be a part of?
It's quickly becoming Michigan West. You've got Cade, you've got Eric Hall, you've got AJ Henning maybe suiting up for the Hawkeyes. I mean, that would be interesting to see. But I mean, dude, Kirk Ferentz is going to do the same thing he's done for 100 years. Like, what? Well, I don't understand that at all. Especially, like I said, after the tweet, he wants to go where they're throwing the ball a ton. Iowa City ain't it.
Yeah, Iowa didn't really stand out as a possible destination when I read that tweet, but we'll see. Interesting.
Yeah. Well, again, speaking to these guys who have played a lot of football but being gone and nobody really worried about it that much, again, not a knock on them, more of a feather in the cap to the roster that Jim Harbaugh has built and the kind of guys that are coming back. Chris, you put a cool article up about that exact topic, like exactly what Michigan has coming back. Nobody else can touch it. Nobody else that matters. Is that fair to say? Can we put it that way?
Yeah. Yes. That's, and I just want to pull it up so that I have the list in front of me. But yeah, in terms of returning production, there really aren't many programs. There's no programs that were in the college football playoff last year that even come close to what Michigan has returning. And I know that some people, look at returning production percentage as like, for instance, if you have a shitty team and you've got a lot of guys returning from that team, it doesn't really speak to how good your team is going to be. But when you have a roster where you're returning 81% of your production, 80+% of your production, and that team won a Big Ten championship, went to the college football playoff, won the most games in Michigan football history. It's always good when you can have more of those guys come back. And you're talking about captains. You're talking about NFL caliber offensive linemen. You're talking about a Heisman candidate in Blake Corum and probably Donovan Edwards, if we're being honest. It's just lack of carries, lack of touching the ball, and he was injured for part of the year. So the guys that Michigan has coming back, it's incredible. And then when you factor in 81% of the production from last year's playoff team is coming back, it's, they're the only team I think there's only 2 teams from the Big Ten that cracked ESPN's top 25 for returning production. It was Michigan and Rutgers. And so, that I think that really speaks to how well you can expect Michigan to do this year. I mean, they've got guys who are experienced, guys who made a lot of plays last year. Junior Colson, your leading tackler from last year. Chris Jenkins, the leading tackler on the defensive line. Rod Moore, the leading tackler in the secondary, leading interceptions. You've got guys that have made big plays that are coming back. J.J. McCarthy, Blake Corum, Donovan. I mean, the list goes on and on. Didn't even talk about the offensive line. They're just loaded. It's perfectly reasonable to expect big things.
I mean, it speaks to every discussion we've had about this team. You're like, where are the question marks? There's one maybe. And
Corner.
honestly, like, I'm not even that worried about it because I feel like they'll find somebody there who can play. Just haven't seen him yet. I mean, Will Johnson is going to be one of the best corners in the country this year as a true sophomore, never going to come off the field. And you got to find a guy to go opposite him. And, oh, by the way, if you need a little bit of help, you need to shade to the experienced guy. Let's just slide Rod Moore and Mikey Sainer still over that way a little bit. I mean, like, I'm just not worried about it at all. I don't know who it's going to be yet. I mean, we've had that discussion. Who's your starting cornerback if you're playing a game tomorrow? I think we both love the idea of Omarion Walker, but he's probably not ready if we're being really honest with ourselves. Yeah. But I like the idea of him being out there, being as long and as athletic as he is, and the numbers we've heard about and just the raw ability. He got beat up a little bit by Peyton O'Leary in the spring game. That's probably not how you want him to look for the whole season. I feel
like a lot of the hype on Omarion Walker cooled after the spring
a little
game.
bit.
And maybe deservedly so. I mean, everybody got excited about, they saw him run it, do the cone drill, and he was, blazing speed there, and he's wearing the number 1, and he's got all the measurables, but probably going to take that's, again, outside of quarterback, that's the most difficult position to play in football. And so it's going to take some time for him to adjust. But I do have the numbers in front of me from a Big Ten standpoint. So I'm just going to read through them really quick, give some of the notables here. So Michigan leads the Big Ten in returning production at 81%. And then scrolling down the list a little bit.
This is both sides of the ball. This is like
this is combined. So this
is
combined, both sides of the ball. So Michigan's returning 81%. Rutgers at number 2, like I said, at 73%. And then you scroll down a little bit. You got Michigan State returning 68%. So they're ranked number 6 in the Big Ten. Ohio State returning 67% of their production from last year, ranked at number 7. And then number 8, just behind them, is Penn State with 65% of their production. And so, again, read into that as much as you want. It doesn't necessarily guarantee a good outcome or a bad outcome. Mm-hmm. But like I said to you before we even hopped on, when you've got a team that's won as much as Michigan has and has accomplished as much as they had with their guys, the more of those guys you can return, the better. And the fact that they're returning 81% of that, I think is, again, it's reasonable to have high expectations for 2023.
I mean, Michigan just is the answer for a lot of questions that no other team can be a part of. It's like, which playoff team has a returning quarterback? Oh, that's Michigan with J.J. McCarthy. Which team has a returning Heisman contender? Oh, that's Michigan with Blake Corum. Which, and to your point, which team has another running back who, I mean, dude, he might end up being better than Blake, and that's freaking bananas.
Okay, let's
how good Donovan Edwards is.
Let's try to do this, and based on how much we know about the other teams. But you're not one who's known for being like Mr. Slurp, right? You'll give your honest opinion. Which team's got the best quarterback in the Big Ten?
Michigan.
Best running back in the Big Ten. Best offensive line in the Big Ten.
Michigan.
Best tight ends in the Big Ten.
I don't know enough about the other rosters. I would guess that Ohio State's got a couple of good ones. I would guess that Penn State's got a couple of good ones, but dude, I'll take Colston Loveland as my tight end 1 against just about anybody. And I like what I saw out of Barner. I mean, that's not a definite, but it's
best defensive line in the Big Ten.
They're in the discussion. If they're not number 1, they're 2 or 3.
Top linebackers in the Big Ten.
I would say Michigan. Junior Colson and Ernest Hausman are going to be a problem.
Top secondary in the Big Ten. Sainer still. Rod Moore. Will
Most
Johnson.
Experienced? Yeah. I mean,
you can make arguments for other teams, but what I'm saying is Michigan is either the clear-cut favorite in that category or they're in the discussion for being the favorite in that category. So, again, it should be 3 straight.
And then you've got Ohio State at home. Yeah, I mean, dude, it's
Sets
all
up
there.
really well.
It's all there for you. It's fun to talk about. And the reason why Michigan has been killing it on the recruiting trail is for all the stuff we just talked about, dude. I mean, the success, the studs at every position. Oh, let's bring we're bringing a big badass tight end, Brady Prescorn, and he's local kid. Who can we have him pal around with? How about Colston Loveland? How about that? Does that work? Maybe AJ Barner, who left another Big Ten program to come where it really matters. We come to Michigan, play, and probably be the second guy. Let's have him pal around with those dudes. Oh, we got an edge rusher coming in that really likes Notre Dame, really likes some other schools. He's from Kentucky. Now he's up in the Northeast. Like who? Oh, let's pal him around with Braden McGregor or Josiah Stewart, who left his program to come. Or maybe we can get David Ojabo or Aiden Hutchinson to come back and walk.
Galen Harrell, Derek Moore. I mean, loaded at that position. I didn't even talk about edge rushers. Again, I give the edge there to Michigan.
Yeah. So I mentioned Brady Prescorn. Dude, I freaking love this kid on tape.
Yeah.
I said I put the tape on. I've looked at him before because he is a local kid, and I knew he was high on Michigan, but he also seemed like he was going to take a while. Turns out he didn't take as long as I thought. He made the decision earlier this week before his senior season started. But, dude, this kid, I watched the tape like 3 plays in. First of all, Rochester Adams has a play that gets their tight end, Brady Prescorn, wide open like every freaking time. He just runs up the seam, and there's nobody with him. They do like a flare out. Anyway, whatever. So he scores a lot. He runs well. I watched him for like 30 seconds. I'm like, kid's playing in the NFL. It's an NFL tight end. He's 220 pounds now, maybe 230. He's going to be north of 250 by the time he's in his prime at Michigan. He runs like a deer. He catches the ball like a wide receiver with his hands. They split him out all the time. Oh, and by the way, he puts people on their ass when they do ask him to line up in the line.
Great blocker, yeah.
And block some people. One of my favorite tight end prospects I've seen, and might not even be as good as Colston Loveland. Like, it's just the rich get richer at that position. And he looks phenomenal. Jared Smith.
Dude, I don't even think Michigan should be recruiting wide receivers anymore. Just recruit tight ends. That's it.
Maybe not.
That's all you need in this offense.
And I may be saying his name wrong. It might be Gerard, but Jared or Gerard Smith, twin brother Jacob Smith, who also has Michigan in his top group. And I'd have to imagine the Wolverines are in phenomenal shape for him now as well. But he was a Gerard or Jared. Notre Dame lean for a long time. Mike Elston put the work in. Now he's part of the class. I mean, the class, like I said, if you're talking about edge rushers wanting to come to a place and get developed, and he might not be an edge guy. His brother, Jacob, is much slighter, a little more twitchy. Jared is kind of like he's like that Chris Jenkins, like tweener. Like, is he going to play it 275, or are you going to ask him to try to get to 3 bills and see what he can look like? So he's a versatile body. Michigan likes guys like that, and they got another one in him, and he's a highly ranked kid. I mean, big-time offer list. I mean, Chris, we're biased as hell. Like, we play NC Dub. We pick Michigan. Do we not? I mean, most of the time.
Of course.
It's really hard to imagine kids coming to Michigan, going on visits, seeing what's been done there over the last couple of years. NIL is starting to come around and not picking that school. And now, oh, by the way, it's working that way because Michigan has the number 1 class in the country.
Yeah, I mean, there's – and that's why when I go back to the very beginning of the podcast and we were talking about Greg Glenn and the news and all of that, there's so much positive right now going on with the football program that, this is, and I think we've talked about it before, but this is what everybody expected when Jim Harbaugh arrived back in 2015, was that the football program would be here, competing for national championships, winning conference championships, in the playoff hunt. Killing it on the recruiting trail. Everything that everybody thought Michigan was going to become under Jim Harbaugh, we're now entering year 9, so it took a little bit longer to get there than most people expected. Had to deal with Ohio State, but man, over the last 2 years, they've really got this thing humming along, and you got to give Jim Harbaugh a ton of credit, but the coaching staff that he's assembled there in Ann Arbor, Sharon Moore, Jesse Minter, Ben Herbert, guys like that are culture guys, program guys, have done, just a number in terms of turning this around and building the right type of culture there. So to your point, yeah, I have a hard time if I'm a highly rated recruit and I want to go and get a great degree and I want to play at a university where I'm probably going to be on big noon kickoff 9 games out of the year, get all the attention, have a great opportunity. Michigan's a hard one to pass up on.
It's just, Like I said, if NIL
that helmet's so damn beautiful, the winged helmet. I mean, it's gorgeous.
Every time I see a kid commit and they post their visit photo shoot, I'm like, how do they leave that place without saying this is the one? This is it.
Wow.
There's no uniform you're putting on that looks better than that. And again, biased, but not really, because every time they do one of those votes, Michigan's usually number one or right up near the top when it comes to best helmet, best uniform, all that stuff. Biggest stadium, one of the better educations you can get in the entire country when it comes to football, if you're a player who actually cares about that kind of thing, which, we can debate on whether and how important that actually is or not. And we've heard it from players themselves, but it's there. At least they have it. Like
the only knock is
don't even have it.
The only knock is the weather. Okay. It's the weather because we're now, you talk about where we're at in the year, dude, like 3 weeks ago, I was in my pool. I was cleaning my pool and it has since snowed a lot out there. And so that's really the only knock I can say against, coming to play at a place like Michigan, but Ohio State's dealing with the same type of shit. It's not like it's unique to Michigan.
Your balls might still be in the pool though. That's fair to say.
There's a good chance.
You were in the pool. It was probably ill-advised.
It was probably ill. Well, it was like in the low 80s.
But the water was where?
The water was not in the low 80s. The water was like in the low 40s. So
that's so cold, dude. I can't believe you did that, man.
Your boy got I was a little too excited to open the pool. My neighbors were quite confused when they saw me out there floating.
I was in the pool. All right. Anyway, yeah, it's Michigan's got everything in the world going for it right now, and it would be really hard if you're a recruit. And Brady Prieskorn, dude, you're talking about a kid who's within an hour of Ann Arbor. I don't know how anybody else ever stood a chance, and probably didn't at the end of the day. And he's a member of the class now. Yeah, it's just I don't think I can say it's amazing because this is just like you said, it's what everybody expected. It just took a little longer, and I was front and center. Leading the charge. Get rid of Harbaugh. I've had enough.
Look at you.
I've had enough. I've had enough. And I'm not going to go back on what I said because at that time I felt it. I think it was fair. It's been miraculous since then. Some of the hires he's made, the things that he's gotten into place, the way that everybody seems to be responding in that building and around the program, the NFL success, putting guys in the league year in and year out, big time players. Getting kids to commit when I don't really know why. We talked like Jaden Davis, man. God bless you. I probably wouldn't have done it if I'm a quarterback, but winning's fun. Winning is fun, and they're going to do a lot of winning at Michigan this year, probably into the next year after that, and we'll see what happens. As the roster continues to turn over. But Jim Harbaugh has done he's put on a masterclass at how to use the portal. We talked about that. He kind of started to prioritize that more than buying a recruiting class a la Texas A&M. And we saw how those two experiments worked out. Jim Harbaugh put the best offensive line in the country on the field, made the playoff, beat the piss out of Ohio State. And I don't even know if Jimbo Fisher knows where he's at right now. So, it's since 2020, nobody's done a better job in the country.
It's incredibly fun to cover this program, to be a fan of this program right now. I just everything inside of me is telling me that this is the year for Michigan to capitalize on all of this recent success. Feels like it's all been building towards this. And then again, you go back to what we talked about earlier, not just the success in the transfer portal, but who they have returning 81% of the production. That's not including guys like Miles Hinton and Ernest Hausman and Josiah Stewart. Those are all in addition to that. And those are all guys who are expected to be impact players this upcoming season as well. So either way you look at it, man, this just feels like it's going to be a special year for the Wolverines.
King Tut, dude, Jack Tuttle. Don't forget about your boy, dude. I became a big Jack Tuttle fan after the spring game. I'm not gonna lie.
He came in and did his thing.
I mean, really
the numbers weren't like if you didn't watch the spring game and you just looked at the stat sheet afterwards, it wouldn't jump out to you. I think he was like, his completion percentage wasn't all that great. The numbers weren't gaudy, but the way that he played and the toughness he had and the command he had over the huddle and when he got up to the line of scrimmage, I mean, he just looked like he was coming to Michigan to contribute. And, JJ McCarthy just happens to be there. And that's another good place to be in. Michigan fans aren't used to entering a season where there's no, there's absolutely no debate over who the guy under center is going to be or behind center is going to be. I mean, this is JJ McCarthy's offense, but yeah, Tuttle, it's hard not to like him. He's a blue collar guy.
That's right. I loved it. Just fighting for yards, just getting popped,
taking hit. Yeah, love it.
All right, we got a donation. Not a big fan of it. Took a shot at my glasses. It's fine. We'll talk about them in a minute. But Michigan has to improve the passing game with a more complex scheme if they're going to win a natty. I don't entirely disagree with that. I mean, it's something, they've been really freaking good, man. They beat Ohio State 2 years in a row, won the Big Ten with ease. And I mean, yeah, they weren't a match for Georgia last year, and they fell short against TCU in a game that most people had them penciled in to win. Was that the passing game? Was that over preparation? Was it trying to get too cute? I don't know. I don't know, but I do think that a slightly more explosive and more consistent passing game would help. I mean, we saw it against Ohio State.
Saw it against TCU, and they needed it.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was just going to say. And to an extent, saw it against TCU, but I mean, they lost that game because they gave up too many points, not because they couldn't score.
Well, and again, I'm not going to nitpick that game, but you do a reverse pass from, Colston Loveland.
Yeah.
If Donovan Edwards gets in the end zone I don't know if that was, I can't remember if that was the first play in the first quarter, but he breaks free and he gets caught from behind, which you normally don't see happen to Donovan Edwards. There were little things here and there that I think really changed the trajectory of that game. And then Michigan turned the ball over, failed on multiple scoring opportunities. I know the one to, oh, Jesus. Who was it? Mullings? Khalil Mullings fumbled at the goal line?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So Khalil Mullings fumbled at the goal line. You had the turnover when Colson Loveland couldn't get it, and I think they went for that was on fourth down as well. So a couple of plays here and there, and you play against a team like TCU that does have an experienced quarterback, that does have explosive athletes, as we saw, and it turns out to be a barn burner. And it was comforting to see that when Michigan needed to, they could throw the ball and be, pretty effective in doing it. I don't know that we're going to see much different out of this team. And I do think they can win a national championship based on the brand of football that Jim Harbaugh likes to play. And it's crazy because I've spent the last 2 seasons pounding the table that they got to throw the ball more. And they just continue to win conference championships, continue to beat the shit out of Ohio State. So what they're doing is working. I just think they've got to figure out how to get it done in the postseason.
Yeah, as Terry and Jason both point out, too, 2 pick sixes in the game, and you lose a 1-possession game. I mean, you just ran down all the other stuff, the Roman Wilson thing, the fumble, the fourth down weird call. I mean, and JJ throws 2 pick sixes, and you still have a shot. Really,
you lose by a touchdown. You're talking about what eight different instances there, where each one on its own is enough to swing the game. And we talked about it. It was. I would argue that was Michigan's worst game of the year by far. And they put up damn near 50 points and almost won the game. So
yeah. No, I mean, I'm with you. I mean, it's still just, I'm never going to feel differently. I just throw it a little more. I just want to, but I mean, dude, how many times did we both have to almost like grab ourselves and be like, they won by 30? Like, what's wrong with us?
A lot.
I know.
I remember walking, and this was before I started shooting. So this was 2021, walking away from the big house with you, leaving the press box, and you and I bitching to each other about how the game went. And then we'd have to stop and be like, well, they did just win by 30, and so.
We did something similar leaving the Iowa game last year. I remember we're just walking like, I don't know, man. But then we're like, oh, yeah, they just won in Iowa City. Like, what are we doing?
It's been a long road, but I have come to accept the way that Michigan plays football. And because it's leading to success, I don't think it's a barrier to them winning the national championship. I just think that, when you look at the way that game went last year, and I know people want to, especially the people that are critical of Michigan and Jim Harbaugh, they want to point to that record, that 1-6 bowl record. It's crazy to me to think with all the success that's happened over the last 2 years, Michigan still hasn't won a bowl game since 2015. Dude, we're in 2023. Like that's crazy to me.
That is pretty crazy.
And that's one thing that does have to change. And that's why I think it's critical. Michigan cannot take a step backward this year. They have to take a step forward. Even if that just means making the playoff and winning the semifinal game, they have got to take a step forward as a program, and I think they will.
Yeah. And then the other part, he wants me to get less nerdy glasses. I mean, glasses are inherently,
you know what?
Glasses are inherently a little nerdy. I mean, like you type in nerd emoji on your phone, at least on iPhones, and the emoji comes up with the glasses on. Like,
listen,
that's what
he paid $10 to insult you, so we've got to let it fly. You just
I'm
gotta
okay
take
with it. Actually, I'm surprised that like there was a mention of my glasses, but this is the I don't normally wear them. This is the first time I've wore the glasses on the pod, and I've been talking about this. Now, maybe way back when, I don't remember, but for a long time, at least since we had the light set up and we were doing it like this, I've never wear them. But I've come to discover that it changes my appearance quite a bit. Like, I can't tell you how many times we've been at the tailgate and someone's like, "Oh, I didn't recognize you with the glasses on." I'm like, "Really?" Like,
yeah,
that Superman shit really works. Like, Clark Kent just takes his glasses off and no one knows that's. I work with that guy. Like, come on, man. Like, it's not that hard. But anyway, so glasses might be a thing moving forward. Nick, maybe not. Maybe I'll just go cry in my bedroom. And
you're getting old, man. It happens.
So anyway, yeah. So we talked about Michigan's success, Chris. Obviously, the measuring stick is always Ohio State. You beat them 2 years in a row now, handily, including once in Columbus. The big runs from Donovan Edwards, the back-to-back Big Ten titles. And Chris, you put up an interesting poll recently.
Yeah.
And we almost couldn't help ourselves. We started talking about it before we launched the show, and then we're like, well, let's just do it when we go live. Lay it out for everybody, Chris, and maybe where this came from and why you decided to do this.
Listen, I just find myself, in the job that we have, the profession we have, I personally spend a lot of time on social media, surfing social media, trying to get the pulse of the fan base, see what the recruits are doing. I mean, that's a big part of what it is we do. And constantly I find myself debating between who annoys the shit out of me more. Is it Michigan State fans or is it Ohio State fans? And so I thought I'll put the poll out on Facebook and see. And not surprisingly, I think it was like 70+% of the fans that voted in favor of Ohio State fans being the absolute worst. But to me, I don't know if it's because we share the same state. I'm not sure what it is about Michigan State fans, but to me, they're a little bit worse than Ohio State fans. And I think it's because even when Ohio State fans talk shit, and trust me, they're some of the worst people out there. Even when they do that, they at least have some substance behind it. They can speak to, nearly 2 decades of success, national championship in 2014, making the college football playoff, yada, yada, yada. When it comes to Michigan State, there really isn't much there. And they talk as if they belong in the same conversation as Ohio State and Michigan, and they don't. And I think for that reason, their fans just irritate the shit out of me. If they want to brag about the basketball program, that's one thing. But Michigan fans or Michigan State fans should have very little to say when it comes to college football.
Caught a little lightning in a bottle for about 6-8 years there.
Kenneth Walker.
I get it. Yeah, Kenneth Walker really helped them out for one season. They got a big win over Michigan in East Lansing. They did beat Michigan with Mel Tucker in the big house in a weird 2020 year. I get it. I understand. Sit down. You're not a blue blood.
I mean, so you lean Michigan State?
Oh, it's not even remotely close. I mean, I think
we're in the minority.
Now, if you rephrase the question just a tad, who's the bigger asshole? That's an Ohio State fan, I think.
I can see that.
Who's dumb, dense, and doesn't get it? That's Michigan State fans
Michigan
all day.
State, right? Which is annoying, irritating. That's how I view it.
Go away. I don't care if I went to CMU. You still suck more than me at most things. Yeah. That's how I feel. Michigan State, they're delusional. They don't get it. They don't belong. They belong at the kiddie table, and they keep trying to sit at the big table, and they don't belong. And it's weird. It's just weird.
Yeah. I think it really hit me when, they brought in Mel Tucker. He obviously got the win against Michigan in 2020 as a 21-point underdog. And then you had the Tuck Cummins stuff started, and then you had the recruiting antics where they're putting like a Ferrari and a Mercedes out on the field and bringing live goats out there to take pictures with recruits. And it just seemed like, things were trending in a certain direction for Michigan State. And then all that amounted to was a 5-7 record last year, missing the bowl season, and have one of the highest paid coaches in the Big Ten. And so, yeah, I mean, dude, whenever Michigan State fans talk, like I get irritated by Ohio State fans, but when they talk, there's at least some substance behind it. There's a reason for them to talk.
You know why you get irritated by Ohio State fans? Because until recently, there's not a whole lot you can say to them. That's why. And that's hard. That's a hard pill to swallow. But with Michigan State, bro, shut up. That's what
I will say this, though. It has been interesting to see the evolution of Ohio State fans because they're so not used to being in this position. Some of the excuses I've seen coming from that fan base over the last 2 years in terms of why they lost that game or how close 2022 really was, or if you take away the 2 explosive runs from Donovan Edwards, like some of the narratives coming out of Ohio State are really strange, or they want to knock the way that Michigan recruits when even Michigan can take, 3 stars and 4 stars into Columbus and still beat the shit out of Ohio State. Yeah. There's some weird narratives, some weird coping mechanisms going on in Columbus right now. But again, they're used to having success against Michigan. They're used to having success on a national level. So as much as I hate them, I can see why they talk as much as they do. Again, Michigan State fans, when it comes to college football, I get you've had some success against Michigan. But as Brandon pointed out, 2020, an odd year. Kenneth Walker, you brought him in as a transfer, incredible player. But by and large, like you don't belong in the same conversation with the University of Michigan. That's just the way it is.
Yeah. And to your point, I rarely interact with Ohio State fans. Like it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
We're in the same yard, as Michigan State people. I forget, Chris, your next door neighbor, is it Michigan State and Ohio State?
My next door neighbor, I was. So when we moved in, I was devastated when the fall rolled around that an Ohio State flag was hanging outside of their home. And now that Ohio State flag has transitioned into one of those stupid ass house divided, where it's Michigan State and Ohio State. And so I don't know how this, when I lived in Chicago, the guy who lived above me was an Ohio State graduate and was always hanging his flag up. So it's like, no matter where I've gone in life, I've always been right next to a Buckeye. And it's crazy to me how it continues to happen.
I cannot think of an uglier combination of things on one flag than Michigan State and Ohio State.
It's awful.
That's just. Ugh.
But I'll tell you what, it's been really nice being on this side of it, because for a little while there with that Ohio State flag hanging, like you go out to cut the grass in the fall and, you're talking about the game and what happened the year before, and it's not good. So now I can puff up my chest a little bit, and it's nice being on this side of it.
Isn't the guy kind of like a brick shit house too? Like you can't even fight him.
I can't. No, I couldn't.
Yeah.
So I mean, like this dude looks like an MMA fighter. So it's like whatever shit I do talk, it's like very, I craft it carefully to make sure an ass whooping doesn't follow.
Or you do it like right as you start the mower. You doing, Jim? Whatever. Like as you're walking by. Yeah, that I remember I pulled up there one time for something. I'm like, what is that atrocity, dude? Michigan State and Ohio State, half and half.
It's crazy.
Ugh.
Crazy. Imagine living in a home like that. I don't know what that's like.
I don't want to. I don't want to even think about it. But yeah, I think that discussion always kind of goes that way because proximity and what we talked about. Michigan State had a little run there. But overall, come on, it's just not, you're not on the same level. And like you said, if you want to do it with basketball, it's a different discussion, but don't do it on the gridiron, man. You're not going to like that. Or my favorite thing for Michigan State people is they love the arbitrary starting point. They just pick a point right. that works pretty good for them because there's not a lot of them. And then they run with that. And we're getting further and further away from that point, by the way, where they used to be able, like, you get 5 years out, maybe 6 years out, you could still be like, well, since 08, though, brother. Like, yeah, 08 was a long freaking time ago now, dude. You realize that, right? Or whatever the year might be. But that's
remember Kirk Cousins was 4-0 against Michigan, I believe, wasn't he?
Kirk Cousins about to retire.
That dude's a veteran in the NFL.
One of the best contracts ever, by the way. That agent, dude, fleeced the Vikings. I don't know.
You like that?
He does like it. Last thing, somebody threw this up earlier, Chris, so I took a note of it because I think it is cool, and I wanted to look at. Actually, hold on, before I get to that point. Michigan released some scheduling information the other day. Most of it was pretty meh.
UTEP?
Right. Western?
The Miners? What?
Directional school matchups, dude? Feed it to me.
Dude, but typical Michigan with their non-conference. Schedule somebody real, okay?
But next year, dude, 2024, Michigan will be hosting Texas.
Dude.
And that's awesome. And dude, if we're still doing this, if all things continue to bless us, we will be going to Austin in 27. It seems like it's a million years away, but it's really not. It's not that far. I mean, I've been covering this team for 10 years now. It's crazy. So
not at this rate, man. The years are ticking by pretty quickly at this age.
But Michigan hosting the Longhorns next year, dude, in Ann Arbor, 2024. It's
incredible.
On the schedule. That's the
got to be under the lights, right? Got to be under the lights.
Expanded playoff year, dude. I mean, yeah, dude, inject it into my veins. Texas,
you're gonna have JJ coming back, right, for a senior year against.
Yeah.
I mean, is it going to be? Is Ewers still going to be there? Is it a Manning he's going to be playing against? I mean, Xavier Worthy. I saw he put out on social. He's like, I might have to come back for another year just to go back and play in Ann Arbor. So. I mean, that is a battle of two blue bloods of epic proportion. Incredible.
And Texas is trending up. Obviously, Michigan's been on a run here lately. It could be incredible. It really could. I mean, that could be like a preseason like top 5 type of matchup. I don't. That's how good it could be if things go how they look like they're going to go for Michigan. I'd have to take a closer look at what Texas is all about this year on the field. But I know they're getting better. They've got, 2 of the best quarterbacks to come out over the last couple of years. You mentioned Xavier Worthy.
I think they're ranked higher in the ESPN FPI than Michigan was, if memory serves me correctly. So, analytics are like in Texas.
They don't even have to leave the state to recruit studs everywhere. I mean, that's the program to be reckoned with if they can get the right person driving it. And it looks like.
But see, what Terry Trevino is saying here is, and I hope I said that right, but that's what gives me so much confidence about this Michigan team is that I don't know that there's a program out there this year that is equipped to deal with Michigan in the trenches for an entire game and deal with that offensive line and deal with that rushing attack. And then JJ McCarthy being able to get out and create on the perimeter, on the fly, use his legs. He can obviously do damage with his arm, but this offense is built to just, you used the metaphor a lot last year. It's like a sumo wrestler. It just leans on the defense until eventually you break and you can't take it anymore. And that's what it is. It's bully ball. Took me a long time to come around to it, but I agree with Terry. I don't think anybody wants to deal with Michigan in the trenches for a full game. I don't think they can.
Chris, great question from Nick here for the dome, for the hairless dome.
See it.
Cowboy hat for the Texas game?
Ooh, you mean like in the stadium?
I like it a lot.
I might get an all-black cowboy hat with the winged helmet logo right in the center. I might do that. You know what? That's probably going to happen.
That's nice.
I don't know. Here's the thing.
What did I do when Michigan hosted Hawaii? Tell everybody.
Well, you wore your Hawaiian shirt.
Absolutely.
And I will say it was hot as shit out that day. So for part of the time in the RV, Brandon had his shirt off. Thank God nobody came in there. But you had it off because you were sweating your ass off. You just needed to cool off a little bit.
Forgot about that.
Here's the thing about a cowboy hat, though. It's almost like when I grew out my mustache, and I think I've told you this before, but my mustache was long at one point, and I curled it. And I went out into public and I couldn't stop thinking about the fact that my mustache was curly. I had to go into the bathroom and take care of it while we were out. I couldn't deal with it. I feel the same way about a cowboy hat. Like, dude, when you wear a cowboy hat out in public, you are like, it's just a different breed of person. You know what I mean? There's not many people that do that seriously that are really about that life. Like, I don't know that I would feel comfortable walking around the big house on the sideline rocking a cowboy hat.
I mean, we're talking another year from now, Chris. This really could be you. This could be what we're looking at.
I probably will be that gray.
I mean, dude, let's get right up in there for them. That could be you. But I do like I mean, maybe you'll get a little loose with it, dude. You'll just really let it go. We'll have one of these beards going on with the black.
Wear some assless chaps down there. Have my camera in like a holster.
That was Chris's idea, folks. That one was all him. I prefer Chris with chaps with an ass in.
Dude, cowboy boots with like the spurs on the back. I might as well just go all out.
Dude, black Nike Air Force cowboy boots. Hybrids. And the hat with the winged helmet logo.
The Black Force boots with the spurs on the back. Dude.
Keep talking for just this. I'm going to Google image search black Air Force cowboy boots. I almost can guarantee they exist.
Listen,
Black
if
Air
they don't
Force.
exist, I know someone to call to make them exist. But I'm pretty sure we can't be the only people that have thought of it.
There's no way.
Yeah, I don't know.
Jesus.
Bro, there it is. There it is. Just order them now. Order them now so they're here on time. They're just missing the spurs on the back.
Yeah, I don't see any with spurs. That might have to be an aftermarket thing for you, but
dude, I feel like I might turn into a different person down there dressed like that. I mean, that's fighting attire.
Chris just wanders off into the wilderness. We're like, we lost Chris. He just walked off into the sunset somewhere.
Swap out Rosie for like a fucking black Clydesdale for just park that up in the tailgate.
Look at tumbling tumbleweed. Chris is gone. Happy trail. Anyway, we're off the rails now at 56 minutes, folks. Texas coming to the big house in 2024. I'm excited. You're excited.
Very excited.
That's big, man. That is big. Any last words here? I mean, we made it an hour. I was looking at the time as we were going through our list, and I'm like, we're going to be a little short here. But we actually did pretty good. We're gonna end it right at about an hour.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'd like to continue to do this once a week. I mean, it's too easy to take a week off. When we do this and we go we take 1 week off, that's like, dude, that's 2 weeks that we haven't done this, and I feel like we get on and I forget how to do it. I get a little bit nervous.
The nerves get going a little bit.
The nerves kick in. It's like the first time we're pushing episode 200. So
does it start to feel like you're going to have a show like your solo show? Should we play the video again to fill up the last 2 minutes just to get to an hour?
That'll get us to an hour. That'll kill it.
Was it museum, library? I'm not sure what the hell that. Their annual trip. So every year they take a team trip. Again, getting reps. Need a couple of weeks. Excuse me. Moving the ball, playing defense, like all of the other. Moving the ball, playing defense. Motherfucker. And we'll chop it up as. At the same time, motherfuck my ass. A four-star running back out of Ohio State, Jesus fucking Christ. Games that need fucking God. Starts with Isaiah. God, fuck. But outside of that, that's all I got for you. So, thanks for tuning in. If you watch this shit show, if you made your way all the way through it. Kudos to you.
I can't handle it.
That's sad. Dude. No, so to answer your question, no, it's not as hard as that. It's not as hard as that.
The glasses are coming off because I'm tearing up.
Dude, that was an hour and a half cut down to like 30 seconds. It was brutal down here.
Man, there's a couple parts that every time when you say ziz, you said the word ziz, dude. I don't even know how that happens.
Terrified. I wasn't live. I was by myself, just terrified.
The last line too is like it. I feel like I'm watching Paul Rudd, like in "I Love You, Man." He's like, "If you made your way all the way through that." You just give up on it mid-sentence. It's fantastic, dude. It's so good.
Yeah, it was brutal.
Good.
It was
man. Brutal. Well, there's your hour, man. 59 minutes, 50 seconds.
We made it.
By the time we trail off, we'll be at an hour. Love it. Love every minute of it.
Listen, I am going to throw in real quick here. Not going to announce it yet, but we do have some news on the sponsorship front. Do have some news on the tailgate front, so just keep your ear out for that. The big things are going to be happening in the fall, and I'm very excited about the people that are going to help us get there.
Wow, dude. Look at that. Chris just drops the sledgehammer as we get ready to roll out.
It's coming.
I was trying to
Dude,
think
can you imagine a group hosting a free tailgate open to the public, free alcohol, food, right next to the big house?
I know.
Right next to the big house, you can spend your entire afternoon there and not have to pay a single dollar.
Not
That's
a one.
incredible.
Not a single dollar. Live shows, bags, beer, brats, burgers,
Maybe some inflatables.
Brown and Breiler. All the bees you need.
It's happening.
Have yourself a hell of a time.
It's happening.
Way, dude. Big things. Chris, it's been a pleasure, man. I feel you. It feels like we haven't done this in a while, and that's because we have. So there you go. Thank you, everybody, for listening tonight. We will be back on Wednesday unless we suck again. I mean, the plan is to do it on Wednesday, right? We got to commit to that. We got to commit to that. So there you go. Yeah, there you go. CJ, I agree, man. No teasing. No more making everybody wait 2 weeks. We'll be back on Wednesday. Take care, everybody.